Welcome, everyone. Okay, welcome to episode 33 of Keep the Redemption in Our Hands. This one is called Wake Up, Moshiach is Here. We skipped, just to those that are following the series, I just skipped episode 32. That's because we're behind a little bit. This week is in our Torah reading right now. We are holding Parshas Vayetze, and we just concluded the Dvar Malchus, the incredible talk called "Are You Ready to Greet Moshiach?", which was based on the Lubavitcher Rebbe's talk on Parshas Chayes Sarah. And we're going through all those talks from the year 57, 52. This is the last words from the Lubavitcher Rebbe about the powerful state that the world is already in from 1992. The unbelievable messianic period that we're in, which speaks volumes, which speaks so powerfully to us today, as the Rebbe's words are prophetic words. And these messages and the core fundamental understanding of what is happening in the world, we can glean and understand by reading these, by learning these incredibly deep and mind-altering classes and talks that the Rebbe gave. So we're a little behind because Parshas Chayes Sarah and was already 2 weeks ago. And last week was Toldos, and we didn't do Toldos yet. And this is the one that we're going to do now. It's the Dvar Malchus of Toldos. And this week I still want to do Vayetze. Now, the dilemma was the challenge. We call it dilemma, challenge. But there were two talks the Rebbe gave in Parshas Toldos. Two lengthy, deep talks. Number one is the one I'm skipping. It's incredibly deep and very, very fundamental. But I felt that Toldos number two, which is included and explains the dynamics of the month of Kislev, which is a very apropos and we're living through right now, is more important, if you might say, for the flow of all these talks. So, and I couldn't do, and we didn't have enough time to do Toldos 1. So we're going to leave Toldos 1 and Bezrat Hashem, come back to that when I fill in all these episodes that we're missing. We're missing like quite a few, like 6 or 7 episodes, maybe 8. And we're going to fill those in when the time comes. Now we're going to conclude, hopefully, continue on. So we're holding episode 33, and this one is called, as I mentioned, Wake Up, Moshiach is Here. Now, in this talk, based on the phenomenal ideas that we've learned earlier, in Parshas Vayera, the talk that the Rebbe gave on Parshas Vayera, we called it Moshiach is Revealed. And that talk is exactly where the Rebbe says that Moshiach is revealed already in the world. Phenomenal talk. There were 4 classes on that. You can check it out on the YouTube. Then came a series of 6 classes called Are You Ready to Greet Moshiach? In that talk, the Rebbe says that now that Moshiach is revealed, what is our work? Our work is to come and greet Moshiach. This one, he's going to explain the essence of that. What is the repercussions to the idea that Moshiach is already revealed in the world? What does it mean to me and to you in our personal life? How do we live with that? And we're going to see that it's not just looking out. It's not just knowing who Moshiach is and getting ready to greet Moshiach. We discussed some of that last time. And that is not to be dismissed. That is crucial and important. But in addition to that, we're going to find out that Moshiach might just be each and every one of us. At the deepest core of our being, we all are Moshiach. That's a concept we've learned already, but we're going to learn how to actually come into, settle in, and open ourselves up to the deepest, to the Moshiach inside of each and every one of us. And the Rebbe is going to relate the idea that it's related to waking up. Actually, all that it really is to encounter and face the Moshiach inside of us is to wake up. But to wake up on the deepest level of our being. It's just waking up. And the truth is, we have it. We have the ability, the potential of this, literally the first second in the morning when we wake up. It's just about being mindful and opening ourselves up to the and becoming aware of that powerful moment of just waking up in the morning. I don't think in all of history anybody ever discussed the moment of waking up like the Rebbe discusses it here. Higher, deeper, beyond anything you will do throughout the day, anything you will say, do, it could be the greatest mind-blowing achievement. It will never surpass the actual split second your eyes open up and you wake up. When we wake up, we are hitting on the deepest core of who we are. It's just that the wake-up moment means actually nothing or mostly nothing to all of us. When we wake up, we know we say Moda Ani, we give gratitude to God. That's when we're feeling a little holy, a little spiritual, a little bit meaningful. But just waking up and opening up your eye, what is that? Here the Rebbe is going to say that's your deepest Moshiach moment, waking up. And obviously this relates to us and right now because we are many people are waking up to the reality that what we spoke about Moshiach is not a distant, removed element, but something very, very, very current and very real. So there is that level of waking up as well. Okay, so without further delay, let's go right at it. So this talk was given on, it's a combination of what was said on a Thursday night, which of the week of Parshas Toldos, and which was the first day of Rosh Chodesh Kislev. Okay, today is the 8th day of Rosh Chodesh Kislev. So this was the first in 1991, in the year 57-52. It was the first day of Thursday, first day of Rosh Chodesh Kislev, and it was continued. It's a combination of talks which was said on Shabbos Parshas Toldos, which was the second day of the month of Kislev. Okay. So we begin as follows. Every month we have Rosh Chodesh. We know that Rosh Chodesh is the beginning of the month. We know Rosh Chodesh is a special day. It's not mamish, it's not literally a holiday, but it's like a mini holiday. Some have the customs that women in particularly don't work on Rosh Chodesh. They have a certain type of laborers work. They don't do it on Rosh Chodesh. We abstain from certain things. It's not prohibited in doing work, but it's a mini Yom Tov. We know when Moshiach will come, every Rosh Chodesh is going to be a big holiday. It even says that we will go up, this is not mentioned in the talk, we will go up to the temple every Rosh Chodesh. We will go up every Shabbos and also Rosh Chodesh. But Rosh Chodesh is a very special day. What's Rosh Chodesh? The beginning of the Hebrew months. The first day, sometimes it's 2 days. When and how do you know? New moon. The new moon is when Rosh Chodesh is. So we know we have 12 months a year. This year is a leap year, so we have 13 months. And the Rosh Chodesh, we have so being that we have 13 of them, so there is a certain general feature that is equal by all of them, because all 12 Rosh Chodeshes, or 13 in a leap year, are all Rosh Chodesh, and they share a common theme. It's Rosh Chodesh. For example, our customs are the same, each one. We add an extra prayer, we say Hallel, and we add an extra prayer on the other, during the Amidah, during the Shmona Esrei, we say Ya'aleh V'yavo, which means an extra prayer, and so forth. That's Rosh Chodesh. It's a nice thing to eat, a special semi-festive, at least to wash, to eat something, to wash for bread. You treat it a little bit like a holiday, honoring Rosh Chodesh. That would be the same every Rosh Chodesh. So we have the common feature of every Rosh Chodesh, and then there is the unique energy of each individual Rosh Chodesh, because every month has a different flavor. Every month has got a different chemistry that make up the substance, the dynamic of the month. So each Rosh Chodesh is unique in terms of its own personality. And how do we get into the flavor of every Rosh Chodesh? For that, we need to examine the name, because the name in Hebrew of something contains its essence. We also need to examine the holidays that come along with this Rosh Chodesh. So then by looking at the holidays, the special days, even though it's not on Rosh Chodesh, it will happen in the middle of the month, like Hanukkah comes out towards the end of the month. But that has a lot to say about the energy of the Rosh Chodesh. And that's how we get to taste it. You want to know what kind of cake it is, take a little taste. So we want to know what the Rosh Chodesh is. We taste it by tasting the holidays and looking at and examining the name of it, reading the label. What's the name? So what the Rebbe does in this amazing talk is he says, number one, let's try to crack open Rosh Chodesh. Let's get a deeper understanding of what Rosh Chodesh is in general and understand how the enormous, powerful day of Rosh Chodesh, what its significance is, and in particularly, being that this was Rosh Chodesh Kislev, how the idea of Rosh Chodesh that is applicable to all months shines even stronger, has even greater emphasis or greater oomph in the month of Kislev. In the month of Kislev, the idea of Rosh Chodesh is ratcheted up with many, many, many levels. It's a very potent Rosh Chodesh. That's number one. In addition to that, let's analyze what is truly unique to the month of Kislev, the month that we're in right now. What is its dynamic? What is its power? What is its spiritual juice of Rosh Chodesh Kislev? In addition to that, we need to see this through the window or through the framework of the times that we're in. In other words, this talk to discuss what's the significance of Rosh Chodesh in general, what does it mean, what is Rosh Chodesh Kislev, could have been taught at various times of Jewish history. And then we would have been examining it through the spectrum of what is going on at that particular time and see how it speaks to us, how we react to it. Although the nature of the month would be the same, but we would frame it in the frame of whatever particular time we're going through. The Rebbe says, since I am speaking to you right now at the threshold of the complete redemption, the coming of Moshiach, so we need to understand and appreciate Rosh Chodesh and Rosh Chodesh Kislev from within the context, to understand how is this relating to, how is this empowering, how is this unique to the particular service that each and every one of us need to do right now, and that is to put all of our energies in to help facilitate the complete redemption. So the message can't just be a message that relates to serving God in general, or to our roles and our missions in our lives in general. It has to be focused in on what does this say regarding the coming of Mashiach and our work to bring the redemption. Because, he says, referencing back to the talk that we just completed yesterday, where he's talking about that we finished already all the work. The Jewish people have finished already all the work. Mashiach is already revealed in the world. And the only thing left is to get ready to greet Mashiach. So if we're holding at this particular time in history, obviously we understand that this has to consume our minds. And if this consumes our minds, everything we analyze has to be from the framework of Moshiach right now. So how do we just, push it through the final? It's based on the Rebbe's quotes, what it says in, we say it by the Passover, Pesach by night, we say, all the days of your life to bring the days of Mashiach. the regular meaning of it in the Mishnah has a different meaning, but the more the play the Rebbe is playing on it, the deeper, more out of context meaning, but yet it fits into the words very nicely, that the task of each and every one of us, all the days of our life, is to bring about the hastening of the coming of Mashiach. That's our work, but now it's amplified. So the question is, how do we condition that to this particular month? Let me put it in these words. Kislev has got enormous power. It's got enormous unique energies. Rosh Chodesh is a very powerful day. Now the question is, how do we harness these particular powers and put it to the particular task that we're living right now to bring Moshiach? Okay. So in this is the Perek Aleph, the summary of chapter 1. Chapter 2, he says, now let's first analyze what is Rosh Chodesh itself, before we get to the uniqueness of the month of Kislev. Rosh Chodesh means, now let's look at the name. Rosh Chodesh means the beginning of the month. The beginning of the month. But it also can mean the head of the month, because the beginning can be seen also as the head of something. Rosh means head. And Chodesh means month. But why is the month called Chodesh? What's the real root of the word? Chodesh means chidush. The root Chodesh comes from the word chadash. And chadash means something new. In Hebrew, the newspapers, when you are called, or news, how do you refer to it? You call it chadashot. What's the news? Yesh chadashot, is there any news? So Chodesh means news. Something new, which comes from new. Something new. Now what's new? A new moon. What's new in the world? Every month, the Hebrew months are lunar months. The secular months that we follow over here on the Gregorian calendar is nothing to do with anything new. It's a new month, but there's nothing really new in nature. But on the Hebrew month, we're following the lunar month, and that's actually a new moon. And there is the moment of what we call it the birth of the moon. Now, the birth of the moon coincides with Rosh Chodesh most of the time. It's possible to happen actually a few hours off, but we're not going to get into the complication of that. But the concept of the new moon on the Hebrew calendar is a new moon. Sorry, is a new month, is a new moon. Now, what is the significance of a new moon? So first of all, what does it mean, a new moon? There's the same moon. The moon has been around and the moon will continue to be around. A new moon means a new visible moon. The moon is in the sky, it doesn't change. However, because the moon reflects the light of the sun, so the reflection of the sun and the position of the moon in reference to the earth and the sun will determine the level of light that is being reflected from the moon onto the earth. And that's what we call now. The second half of the month, the way the moon, the sun, and the earth are positioned is that the sun that reaches the light of the sun that is shining upon the moon and illuminating the moon is not visible to earth. It's actually on the other side of the moon globe. So therefore, to us, looking at it, it's dark. Now, not the whole second half of the month. It starts the second half of the month, the moon begins to wane. We see less light, less light, less light. Until you reach the end of the month where the sky looks moonless, no light at all. And then comes the new moon, and suddenly the moon reappears in the sky. Like first a tiny little sliver of light, barely a little arch, and then it starts to grow every night. We see it brighter and brighter and brighter until mid-month when you have the full moon. Now that concept of so on the physical plane, there's nothing really new here. It's just new moonlight. But spiritually, the concept of a new moon is very, very, very important dynamic. It represents a whole new energy flow from God into the world, a whole new light. There is something new in the universe. There is some power that has not been here. And the new moon is not just like what was once here and we couldn't see is now coming back. Yes, physically it is that way. It's the same moon, the same sunlight that's hitting it. but its spiritual dynamic represents literally new, meaning a new energy, a new existence that is as if it never, not I'm saying as if, but it really is that way, an energy that has never been in the cosmos is now emerging, a new empowerment. And that new empowerment is happening on the cosmic level, and that new empowerment is happening in each and every one of our souls, that we are empowered to have a whole new birthing, a whole new power of self that has not been before. That's the concept of this new moon. And the way it works is, the way this newness comes about is that it comes about after a period of darkness. The concept of a new moon represents a very, very important phenomenon, and that is that between elevation and elevation, between accomplishment and accomplishment, there is a certain breakdown, there's a certain fall, which really, really speaks so much to our lives, because we all know in our lives that we're constantly waxing and waning. We're constantly have moments of glory, of moments of achievements, moments that we're so proud of, moments that we feel like, wow. And then there are moments that we feel pretty dark, pretty ashamed, pretty lowly, pretty useless, if we might say. And that's the darkness. It's very, very important that we appreciate that when we're going through any kind of darkness, whether it's materially, certain things that we've had certain things that we were working on fall through, certain things that we once had, we lose, whether it is spiritually, emotionally, relationships, things like that, in which, we've had nice, beautiful days and suddenly things are breaking in our life. And we're going through a darkness. The moon that God put it in the sky, an amazing thing to remind us that just look at the moon, just like the moon goes through its darkness, its concealments, it gets blocked. You don't see it. It's getting weaker and weaker. It seems to be a non-entity in the end of the month. We might even believe that the moon is, once was beautiful, but now she lost it. She's aged and she died. She's out. She's past her prime. She's not here anymore. And yet, there she is again. The moon reappears. We have a new light. And the idea is, based on the concept and the principle that we mentioned now, when the new moon comes, it's not just what once was making her way back to her previous glory, coming back to where we once were, but the fact that the moon had to disappear from the sky, it's only because the next moon that we're going to see is a higher, more glorious, more brighter moon than the moon that we've had. That's the idea. We lose what we once had in order to prepare for a much greater revelation. And God has orchestrated this world in this way that if we want to achieve, there always has to be in between moments in which we kind of experience a darkness, because before every light comes the darkness, and the moon is the epitome of that idea. Before the light comes the darkness. There's a dark period. In the terms of the Rebbe, he uses he uses a term that comes from the Haftorah that we say on it's in Sefer Shemuel, which talks about King David and Yonatan and King Saul. It was the time when Shaul HaMelech wanted to kill David, his son-in-law. King David was the son-in-law of King Saul, and King Saul was upset because he was told by the prophet that King David will take the empire, will take the kingship away from him. And King David was a good friend of Yonatan. Yonatan is the son of Shaul. And Shaul tells Jonas, and Yonatan says to David HaMelech that tomorrow is going to be the new moon. Tomorrow is going to be Rosh Chodesh. And my father is going to have a custom to have his custom Rosh Chodesh meal. You, being a member of the family, would be invited, as everybody's coming to the table. But I know my father is getting angrier and angrier, and your life might be in danger. So in order to get a sense of where my father's wrath is holding, I'm asking you tomorrow, be absent. So my father is going to inquire about you because you're absent. In other words, if you're there, I won't get to know. I won't have a thermometer to feel how my father feels about you. But the fact that you won't be there, and he'll ask about you, and then I'll be able to tell him whatever, and then I'll see his reaction. Then I'll know if you need to skip down or not, you need to escape or not. That was the point. And so he told King David that tomorrow is Rosh Chodesh. So therefore, v'nifkadeta, you're going to be absent. Don't come to the Rosh Chodesh feast. But because you're going to be absent, v'nifkadeta means because of your absence, you paked Moshe. I'm sorry. V'nifkadeta, excuse me, I quoted it wrong. V'nifkadeta means you will be mentioned, you will be discussed, you will be brought up on the table into the conversation. Why? Because your seat will be vacant. Your very vacancy will cause people to talk about you, which, by the way, is a little bit a sad idea, but it's a reality. That sometimes you see children in school, the teacher never even notices their existence until they're not there. Where were you? Or people sometimes in shul, a person could be coming to shul every day and the rabbi or whoever it is doesn't even notice that they're present. But the fact that they weren't there, where were you? Well, that's the way it is. The absence causes awakens a concern or a awareness of the usual presence. So this is the idea with the same thing with the moon. And it's interesting, it coincides with the moon. King David was invited on when? On Rosh Chodesh. Rosh Chodesh is when the new moon is mentioned after its absence. There is an absence of the moon, and then its very birth is coming after the absence. But over here we're learning it's not just after. It's a result of the absence. The very non-presence of the moon is what it takes to trigger a new moon. And again, let's remember, the new moon doesn't mean just getting back to what we had before, because just getting back for what we were before, that would mean that whatever, losing it wasn't worth it. I could have maintained it. It could have held on to that previous achievement, accomplishment, and level. The fact that that it was lost, it had to be for a reason. It's a reason so that we can muster up the energy to go higher. Like we see in our own lives, sometimes a person, I'll give a simple example of that. A person has a job. They're doing very well at their job. But there is much more potential to this human being. Much more potential. Even, let's say, within the job themselves that they're doing, they can have a far more prestigious level in the company, where they would get a much higher salary and they would be so much more productive. But okay. And they're not working to it. Why? Because they're doing so well. For whatever reason, the company is downsizing and they get fired. And to them, it's the catastrophe of the catastrophe, because what they've had, they've lost. But precisely in the darkness and in the misery of feeling lost and feeling, insecure and being worried about the future in this dark time, forces this individual to go out job seeking or whatever, or do whatever it takes to not only be hired, but to actually get a job. And then they end up with a job that is far greater than what they were before. And then what they saw as a curse and an absence ended up being the impetus for the greatest blessing. That's the concept over here. The moon falls so that it will grow, it will be remembered on a higher level. So now let's go back to what is the essence of Rosh Chodesh. The essence of Rosh Chodesh is the birthing after an absence, the emergence of the moon after it hasn't been there. Now, however, once the moon comes back, what happens? It gradually grows. It gradually grows more and more and more and brighter and brighter and brighter until it reaches the 15th. So on the first day, Rosh Chodesh, we have already a Mazel Tov. The new moon is here. There is a presence already of this new phenomenon, this new light that's here, this higher light that we discussed earlier, this higher energy that has never been here before. However, it's still very minuscule. So, and if you want to really measure it up, the second day is going to be greater than the first day, and the third day even greater, and the 15th day is going to be much greater. So really, to celebrate, the celebration should not be so much on Rosh Chodesh, although Rosh Chodesh is terrific because it's better than the absence. There's actually a replacement of the moon, but it doesn't have within it the greatness. The 15th would be even greater. But the Rebbe says, not necessarily. Why? Because just like when a baby is born, the greatest moment in your life is actually the moment you were born. Even though at that moment, none of the person's accomplishments are present. But the potential for everything is there in that moment. Before the person is born, there's okay, no, they're a fetus, so they're really potentially also there, but they're not in this world. The person is not here. The moment the person is born, it's like this moment is the blessed moment. Imagine like Moshe Rabbeinu, Moshe was born, or Abraham, the moment what was the world like the moment before Abraham was born? What kind of blessing was there? Like the greatest blessing. Abraham was born. When Abraham was born, Avram Avinu was born. Wow, this is a person who is going to turn around the entire world, propel the entire world to ultimate goodness and light. Moses, Moshiach, the moment of birth, even though they're a baby at that moment, can't do anything. Because in the moment of birth contains within it, it encapsulates within it everything that's going to be in the future. So the same is also with the moment of birth of Rosh Chodesh. Yes, the light is going to grow. Yes, Abraham is going to be 3 years old. He's going to be more than when he was a baby. Yes, when he becomes 15 years old, he will be greater than when he was 3 years old. And when he's 26 or he is 52, as it says, Abraham reached a very high understanding, or when he's 75 and God speaks to him, or when he's 99 years old and he performs his circumcision and he has a covenant with God, or higher and higher and higher of his accomplishments of Abraham, till he reaches the peak of his life at his moment right before he passed on with all of his accomplishments. But it's all contained in the moment of birth. So the moment of birth, because it's the birth and the birth of the very person himself, the very person himself contains within himself, within his very being, all the details that will later emerge in his life. So therefore, that's why Rosh Chodesh is powerful. Because this new energy, yes, it's going to open up to us. It's going to manifest and reveal itself more and more and more throughout the coming days, and the energy is going to be more expansive. But the Mazel Tov is not as great as the moment, because before the moon came about, there was nothing, and now there is something of this new energy, and that's significant about Rosh Chodesh. Therefore, it's called Rosh, because it's like I said earlier, the head contains within it the seed of the entire body. The head controls the entire body. And this, he says, is similar to another day, which we have similar to that, is Rosh Hashanah. Rosh Hashanah is also like that. Rosh Hashanah is a holiday. It's the first day of the year. What is special about Rosh Hashanah is you have the entire upcoming year in a nutshell. When we blow shofar, we draw down literally the life force of the entire year. That's why in Hasidic teachings, it explains that Rosh Hashanah is not just the beginning of the year, but it's the potent, it's the seed. It contains within it the entire upcoming year. God delivers to us the year with all of its blessings on Rosh Hashanah. Now we just have to click and start opening up the files. And that's why the sages say that your parnasa, a person's livelihood, was all set and allocated by God on Rosh Hashanah. And so on, everything that's there. So Rosh Hashanah is the encapsulation of all that's there. And what do we find by Rosh Hashanah? We find that the verse says that when the verse wants to describe when we should blow shofar, it's a verse in Psalms and Tehillim. Tiku b'chodesh shofar, blow the shofar, from the concealment liyom chagenu, to the day of our holiday. So the sages say, which holiday are we talking about? The holiday where the moon is concealed. Yet, what happens? On Rosh Hashanah, which happens to be Rosh Chodesh, there is a new moon. So what does that mean spiritually? That means the beginning is a time of extreme darkness. We don't know how God is going to give, what kind of year God is going to give us. All the blessings of last year have departed. Everything has expired. There's a certain expiration. There is a certain disconnect. So we're living in the same concept that we spoke about earlier. We're fired already from the previous job, but we have not yet been appointed. We haven't yet found the new job. So this is a very confusing, scary moment, Rosh Hashanah. It's bakesa, it's concealment, similar to the moon. There's a concealment, there's a darkness. And our hearts are pounding, not knowing what's going to happen. But then we blow the shofar and God blows new life to each and every one of us. God infuses himself and invests himself into the world and to each and every one of us. That infusion contains the entire year. The Yom Chagenu. It has Rosh Hashanah, power of Rosh Chodesh. That's the concept of
Rosh Chodesh as it represents. So now I have to conclude the share for the constraint of time right now. However, what we need to understand, where this is going is, where this can continue, can explain that the concept of this newness of the moon is really representing the rejuvenation, because the Jewish people are compared to the moon. It's the new moon idea of it means the new us, the new people. And as we're going to see, the real newness of the Jewish people is the newness of the Jewish people at the time of the redemption. We are going to continue the exploration of this, Bezrat Hashem, in class number 2, as we get a deeper understanding. Thank you for joining, and let us see Moshiach today.